Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, wherever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Post-Conference Presser for Anfield Index. It was another 9 a.m. start, wasn't it, ladies and gents, up at the Axis? Arne Slot does seem to like these 9 o'clocks, every single one, and we treat the Champions League a little bit differently, but every single Premier League one, 9 o'clock Saturday, get it done, get it dusted, and focus on the weekend. So I'm Dave Davis, coming to you from pretty gloomy Edinburgh, to be honest, as a bit of a weather check. That summer revisited was quickly departed. So here we are. What will we talk about? You know what we'll talk about. We'll talk about the questions Arne Slot was asked, the answers he gave. We'll talk about Milan and the lessons learned. Did anyone play their way in? Did anyone play their way out? We'll talk about the threats that Bournemouth will bring and Iraola's men visiting Saturday, 3 o'clock. And we'll do our predicted lineup and then the score and scorers. So plenty to talk about. And if ever you wanted any evidence of just how bizarre Liverpool and its news and everything around it could just be, it's the fact that before this press conference, the Trent Alexander-Arnold news came out. And the Trent Alexander-Arnold news was that nothing to do with a contract, but a purchase, an apparent purchase of Nantes in the French league for a figure around 145 million euros. And everyone was just going, huh? What? Where's Trent? Also, people were, oh God, where's Trent getting that type of money from, etc., etc. So that's just before the press conference, ladies and gents. Followed by, at 10 o'clock after the press conference, the news being rubbish. James Pearce swoops in and in a great way tells us this is not true. So the conspiracy theories over Trent, getting a lump sum from another club, etc., can be put to bed on this one. So that was a bizarre, just typical weird Liverpool start. But let's get into it. Let's get into what Arne Slot was asked and what he said. So he was asked by Vinny O'Connor at the start, as he always is, a few questions. He was asked about, tiredness and managing that. Did that play a factor on Saturday, the defeat to Nottingham Forest? So I don't think it's the main issue, even if it was an issue. We also played Milan 2 to 3 days later, and you'd expect players then to be tired or even more tired and come along with real strong performances like they did. For me, we have to give credit to Nottingham Forest. They made it really hard for us. And always the main resistance is about the other team and what they give you, not the tiredness. Weird one. I think there's a little bit of everything in this. I think we did look tired on Saturday. There's no doubt in that. Will he regret no rotation at all? Possibly rotated a few for Milan, didn't he? Will he regret going to that 3-2-5, changing so much around the players he played in certain positions? I think he'll have regrets. But at the same time, I think he's right. It wasn't the main issue. We did say afterwards, we just couldn't pass the ball to each other and we couldn't create sod all. That, those are two big factors on Saturday just gone. Also, I mean, the highest rating you probably give is a 6 to anyone. Like, if you think of the players who were brilliant in the San Siro, aside from maybe the players at the back, most were woeful against Forest. Yeah, it really was night and day, wasn't it, in that regard? So tiredness maybe played a part, but I like that he didn't just go to that. There was no sort of seeking that excuse, and he made a good point. Well, if we're tired against, I played, bar a few changes, most of the same players against Milan, so we can't use that at all. I think he was right to do that. And we'll see, obviously, what another Saturday, 3 p.m. brings, because we've got so much to steer into with this Bournemouth game. He was then asked about players. We're going to have a bit of a player focus, and some of these came at different parts in the press conference, but I'll put them all together for you, ladies and gents, just because I'm kind of a good soul that way. So we'll get to the first bit he was asked about. Did Gakpo take his opportunity? Was it linked to Angle? What does Darwin Nunez have to do as well? Vinny O'Connor asked him that. He said, same like all the others, work really hard and goals will come. That's what he did when he came on against AC Milan. Nunez, of course. First of all, you come in for the team. Then a result of that, the attacker should get goals and assists. And that also happened to Cody, Lucho, Mo, Diogo. If you play well in this team, Liverpool team especially, will always score goals and get assists. For me, it's always mainly about the work without the ball. He will get his chance in the near future, and we play a lot of games. He's bitter and bitter now, but he's in competition with Diogo, who's done really well in the last few games. He was then asked about, has he got confidence? He said, no, he came back with a lot of confidence after the Copa America. Darwin always has the right to have this confidence, as everywhere he played, he scored. As a striker, you can have a few games you don't score, then all of a sudden you score a lot. As long as he brings a work rate for the team and we bring him enough in positions, he will score goals. The interesting one, this, because it started off, like I say, it was a question about Cody that then progressed into Darwin Nunez. So he kind of got answered generically, didn't it? All the strikers will score. We'll get, if we get the opportunity, Liverpool team, you'll put the ball in the net, you'll get assists, etc., which is true. But you have to play, first of all, don't you? So you think to that, and you think he says, Darwin will get opportunities in the near future. Oh, sorry, we'll get his chance, he said, let's be precise, in the near future. Anyone else thinking that chance for Darwin Nunez might just be, in his mind, the Carabao Cup against West Ham? It's interesting that he also said in this one, Diogo Jota is doing well the last few games. Has he? Since he's not had a bad start to the season as people making out at the moment. I mean, scored against Ipswich, makes a goal against Brentford, very good performance overall against United, shows his game intelligence. Forest, woeful, to be honest. But then again, so were many. But basically, he couldn't pass to a teammate. He couldn't control the ball. Sometimes you think, that's sometimes when Jota scores and you just forget it. But he didn't against Forest, and he was rightly brought off. Against Milan, just couldn't seem to almost trap a bag of cement at times, could he? And it's hard to get out of your mind that miss against Milan, where McAllister runs, plays him in beautifully, and you think he's just going to slot it in with his left foot, and he puts it wide. So there's that. I'm not really sure you'd say in the last few games Jota plays. I don't think that's true. Not that Slot's going to call that out individually, but it's not true. You're saying that Darwin has 84 minutes overall. He'll be chomping at the bit for this one, won't he? If he doesn't start against Bournemouth in this one, you do wonder about, confidence. He can be a streaky player as well, can't he, Nunez, as we know? Like Jota can as well, to be fair. So, yeah, get his chance. I just get the feeling it will be West Ham, but we'll have to see. He was then asked about, again, I've moved this forward a bit because it's good, because we mentioned Gakpo before. It was almost the last question of the press conference. His reaction, was he angry? How did he react? He said, no, he may have come in from anger, but it doesn't need anger to play in the best possible way. If you play once a week or once in a while, you have to give it your best. I actually think he benefits from two things. His own quality, we know how special a player he is, and he benefits from the players around him and the team structure. The structure helps get the ball in the right positions. That made for a great performance. But the one he's in competition with had some great performances as well. It's all about the team. These players all have a lot of quality. If they can show up, if that comes from anger or not, but just work hard and individual quality, it will lead to a good performance. Yeah, Cody Gakpo was brilliant, wasn't he? In the San Siro, there's no two ways about it. And then it's a great assist, the way he stands up, Pavlovic goes again and puts it across. He had some great shots. He was unlucky, wasn't he? Keeper made it a few good saves, but won his take-ons, his duels, that type of thing. So a lot to like, really is. And he hasn't had many minutes this season. And I understand, and I completely get the logic of a lot of people will be saying, got to start him again. Got to go again this weekend. I get that. At the same time, I get the argument on the other side that says, well, just hold on a minute. Luis Diaz has 4 goal contributions and in 3 goals and assists. He's only behind Mo Salah so far. So there's that. People will say the start to the season, he has pace that Gakpo maybe doesn't. And if you play Gakpo, Jota and Salah, it's not slow, just to be clear, but it doesn't have that burst of acceleration that a Diaz or a Nunez gives you in that way. So people will reference that. This, for me, is easily the most difficult decision for Arne Slot of the weekend. He'll make it, and he's got a great option on the bench, whatever. I can make a case for Diaz and Gakpo. I really can. So it will be interesting to see what happens this weekend. And then the final one, we got the dagger in the heart, didn't we? Because he was asked about any injuries or anything. He mentioned Allison. Said he's still a doubt if he can train today. Let's wait to see if he can train. And if he can't train, then naturally he can't play. He was also asked a bit later, what is the issue? So it's a slight issue with one of his muscles. Tomorrow may come too early. He didn't take it actually from Milan. It happened a bit before. We have to wait and see if we're ready in goal tomorrow. So it later got revealed it's sort of that hamstring tightness by quite a few of the patch journos. So he is a doubt right now. We don't know. He's then asked about, quite near the end of the press conference, what do you think is Allison's role and the role of a keeper? He kind of laughed a bit, said catching crosses, to which everyone laughed, which in my opinion is a really important one. Playing out from the back is something he needs to do. If another team is pressing really high, he has to make the right choices, because if we're one-on-one, for instance, then he has to play a long ball. He's part of the build-up, but naturally his main focus is saving the ball and catching crosses, which he's done well, and we've only conceded 2 goals in 5 games. Yeah, he does pick up a few injuries, Allison. I mean, last season, at one point, you have to be honest, Kelleher overtook him in performances, didn't you? He missed a large chunk of last season after he went down in that Manchester City game. Now, this one doesn't sound too bad by all accounts. It really sounds like he could be fit, but they won't possibly risk it. If he can't train today, he just, won't play at all. And listen, we've got a brilliant deputy in Kelleher. Doesn't worry me that Kelleher has to come in against Bournemouth. I know people are going to start looking at the Forest game, but that was really Allison, wasn't it? Even the shot, I know he could have a save from Hudson-Odoi. I know people talked about not making a dive, but he goes in off the post. It's just a brilliant strike. He's been brilliant this season, made some brilliant... It's Allison, we expect that. But Kelleher's a more than capable deputy as well. Also, and if you want to bring Kelleher in now, he's going to play the Carabao Cup as well, isn't he? So Allison's going to get that full week's rest. If there's any doubt, you'd rather just keep Kelleher in there, wouldn't you? For a few, give Allison the week's rest, ready to go again against Wolves. So we will see. It's also interesting. You look at these last few seasons, say Allison is picking up injuries. People questioned a lot around Marmadashvili. Yeah. Let's hope, listen, that this is the last injury we're talking about for us from the season. We can't see into the future. We're not Mystic Meg, but it would be good if the big holy goalie just stayed fit all year round, wouldn't he? He's just he's the best in the world. He's unbelievable quality. But ability and availability go hand in hand, don't they? So we'll see if he plays. The next question he was asked was about Richard Hughes, wasn't he? Richard Hughes, his boss, funnily enough. People thought he was going to speak badly about his boss, but here we go. Said, yeah, he's been good from the start. It only develops if you work longer with each other. He gets to know my ideas about football better. He already knew them really, really, really well. Also the reason why I wanted to join Liverpool and know more, and he knows more about me than just results. Work relationship is really good, as well as we get along well off the pitch. I'm not quite sure what anyone expected Arne Slot to say about his boss, Richard Hughes, in a press conference, but there we go. There's been a lot of Zubimendi talk, hasn't there, this week, because he's been rubbish baby by a Sociedad journalist, who knows. But yeah, I don't think there's any doubt Slot would have liked another midfielder. Yeah, I think there's zero doubt about that, isn't there? But what's he really supposed to say? He's been quite clear we're not going to talking about contracts for the big three. He's battered that answer away with the same thing every time. So really, what he's supposed to say about Richard Hughes, but positive, because again, he is his boss in this structure, as we know. Yeah, there's no real surprises with that one at all, is there? He was also asked about the Milan game. We should talk about this a bit, because it was brilliant, wasn't it? And was it a chance to bounce back? He said, well, the evidence showed for many games, except for that Forest one, and like pre-season, all the ones we played before, that we showed our quality and how well they can play. For me, it wasn't only about bouncing back, but it was about Europe. From the last 2 years, how we performed in Europe. Last season, when Atalanta came, was a difficult moment, so we had a point to prove. The standards have been set really high by so many Liverpool teams, but some that are still playing in this team, and we have to get back to those standards. If you can play a away game in San Siro as your first game like that, that's really good. It's not the result, but the way we played shows we are a very difficult team to beat and play dominating football in a stadium other than Anfield. I really liked the way Slot answered this. This felt like the first step into that I've really heard where he's not separate. He's talking about us, even though he wasn't there at the time. He's talking about our history against Atalanta, our standards in Europe, how we are one of the big kings at the top table. There's no doubts about that. 6 times, we can all put our Champions League and European Cup medals on the table in the UK, and we know who's sitting top. There's zero doubts about that at all. I like the way he talked about the players already in the team, and I really like the way he talked about getting back to those standards and also being a dominant team away from home. You just get the feeling that Slot really fancies this competition, don't you? To show how he can do, away from home, dominate teams at Anfield at the same time as well, testing himself against the best. But you've got to like the way he talks about even our history when he's not been here before, and he's thinking about that, stepping forward for Liverpool. So much to like that he talked about in this one, ladies and gents. And the other bit, he kept coming up, so I'll mention it briefly. Lessons, and he said more things that we weren't happy about in that game, Forest, than we played until now. I actually prefer to play. This is the bit I wanted to give you, though, because I know people say, well, Forest a lot. This is a key line. I actually prefer to play against a low block, as the team is far away from the goal. Normally, with all the quality we have, if you have so many teams in and around the 16-yard box, you would expect, and with our players, you would expect us to create a lot with the quality we have. We haven't faced that a lot till now, so it's a good time to reflect. It sounds simple, but if every player played 5% better than against Forest, it's not difficult, to be honest, and it'll make a massive change. It's interesting the way he answered that, because on the back of last Saturday, and I get this, there's been a lot of people saying, low block, could that be our kryptonite? It's been historically, it's been an issue for us, all those types of things. Is that what's, Slot might struggle against because everything's been so good so far and we've won at United away? Straight on the front foot with this, and honest, wasn't he? No, as Arne Slot said, I like playing against the low block because they're far away from our goal typically. There's less danger, and with the quality we have on the ball in and around that box, we should create chances to make things happen. And that's what he's had at Feyenoord. Yes, it's a different league, but it is playing the odds, isn't it? And I agree with him, to be honest. I really do. I know people will look at Forest and say, well, low block, is Bournemouth now a bigger test than Milan? And that's a fair point in a certain way. But Scott will talk about control, winning our duels, the dominance in possession. He used that term in this one, didn't he? Dominant team. That's what he'll expect against Bournemouth, even if we do have to be a bit patient, and that's, us as fans as well, his team to do that and move at the right time. And we basically playing that we've got better quality than you, Bournemouth. If we have the ball in and around your area, we'll do better. And I mean, he talks about that. He quantified it, didn't he? If all the players played, his words, 5% better, we'll have a better chance. I mean, yeah, what are the odds? I know it's easy to say it in hindsight, but if you were to go before, what were the odds that 9 out of 11 players would have an absolute stinker, that the entire forward line couldn't pass it to their teammates? The midfield would largely struggle, especially Mo Salah just looked absent. Trent would be, all the things you could go through without being forensic from last weekend would happen. As Slot said, 5% better would make all the difference. That's what he's banking on. Just interesting they talked about that, isn't it? Arne Slot doesn't mind a low block, so there's no element of frustration talk from him whatsoever. Interesting. As well, he was asked about, and these two were interested, the schedule. It's been the talk of the town, hasn't it, since obviously we know Jurgen Klopp started it, was the one to have that foresight, but everyone's on it now. Rodri, all those types of people, aren't they? Threats of strike. Said was asked about the schedule and how you're coming round to that. And, he was asked about the player strikes as well. Said, well, I don't know if you know, in Holland, we also play games in the weekend, and we also play Europe and the Europa League, etc. during the league. It's the only one difference to the league. So until now, I've not seen anything different. But the Premier League does have 4 extra games and the Carabao Cup. But from the start until now, I'd have played as many games as I did at my former club. The main difference between the Premier League and Europe is you have to play during this Christmas and New Year period. At these moments, that's the biggest difference between your league and others. I guess that's what you mean, the strength of the league and the quality of the league, the quality of Forest and Bournemouth. That's much higher than if you play in the Eredivisie that doesn't have those top teams apart from the top 6 positions. We think about this, but a lot goes into our planning for the short, medium, and long term. Yeah, but I get what he was asking, that why the journalist mentioned this, and I get what Slot was trying to say, and maybe just didn't quite meld together for me as the right phrase. It's natural for the journalist to say, well, you kept an unchanged, what he's alluding to, an unchanged team. You could have changed that. You think about that against Forest. You've then kept largely the same players. You've got, will you rotate for Carabao? It's natural that, because those are questions that we're asking at the same time, aren't we? We're learning on the job about Arne Slot and his methods, about little rotation. I mean, there was a couple, obviously, for Milan, but the way he likes to do things, even the Carabao Cup, we're learning on the job if he makes the full raft of changes that people are now expecting him to make. And we'll talk about Bournemouth later. It also is, as we know, I mean, the Eredivisie, is one of the worst leagues in Europe. There's no two ways about it. I mean, there's quite a few people have said, if you take the stats from the Eredivisie and bring them across to a Premier League, the equivalent is almost like a lower championship player equivalent. It never translates well, does it, at the same time? So it's natural. It is a new challenge. But at the same time, Arne Slot can only tell you his methods and what he thinks. And he didn't bristle at it. That would be too strong to say. But he was trying to make the point, well, I have played Europe, by the way. I do play, in competitive games before as well. This is not my first rodeo. That's what he was alluding to, really, wasn't it, at the same time? But at the same time, the journalist, I get the question. He's not had this exposure. Just the two minds, the questions, the answers didn't really meld in this one. And the final bit I want to bring you, ladies and gents, a bit of not a call to arms, but he talked about us and our history, which I liked. I like the way he said this. It's the first time he's talked, and he was asked about it, I appreciate, but the atmosphere. Said, James Pearce asked him at the end, any protest about the atmosphere? He said, well, my only protestation was about how we played. We as a team have to be aware we need to give fans something to get behind the team. I don't think we did this enough. The only thing I ask is that if we don't show up enough, then maybe they can help us. And he was clear that maybe it wasn't, demand anything. It looks like it's not their day. So if they could help us by singing, cheering, whatever they can come up with, that would be great. But I'm not asking them to. We have to look at ourselves, and it starts with us doing better. Maybe if we don't, and I'm not expecting or hoping for anything, the fans can give us the extra push by showing us what it means to win this game. Love the way he answered this. Love the way. I mean, let's get on to the Anfield atmosphere. People are making sweeping statements. Let me just be clear on this. It's like Gattuso quote, the atmosphere at Anfield, isn't it? Sometimes it's a good, sometimes it's a shit. It's like there's no two ways about it at all. Forest, even going back, fell into the second category, unfortunately. It wasn't great. You could feel, I was at the game, you feel the tension in the stadium, and there's so many people say that, they were scream and shout. Well, if everyone was screaming and shouting, it would be that. But, as Slot said, and he nailed on right with this, there is an element of responsibility on the players. You can't just expect everyone to be screaming their heads off every game. It's not Dortmund, yellow wall, banging. That's not the way English football is by nature. You do get, the game buzzes from the occasion, what you see on the pitch. Are your players, fired a tackle, lifts a crowd? We all know how this game works. So everyone wants to give it the tourists, Wolves, all that stuff that just gets trotted out, into the loss and atmosphere, blah, 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 etc. That being said, for anyone, and this is my opinion, for anyone jumps on this for me, there isn't enough access to local tickets for local fans. That's true. It's expensive, and we don't distribute as well as we could. I think the club knows about that. Is that, we can get into the debate about too much corporate. I think there is that. Is there enough young scousers being given opportunities to get in that stadium? Probably not for me, but we're not going to change everything in a weekend. But as Arne Slot has told us, if we can help the team, that would be great. Might have to have a bit of patience against Bournemouth this weekend. It might be that we have to get used to that. They could well come with a low block, a different team than Forest, but as Arne Slot said, he's not putting the element on us completely. The team has to give us something to get excited about. I like that at the same time. And listen, the whole stadium atmosphere fans is probably one for a better day. What I liked about this is Arne Slot talking about it and talking about almost us and speaking to us a little bit. So it was a good way to really finish that press conference that way. Brill. As always, we talk about the lessons from AC Milan. Oh, ladies and gents, what a game. European royalty back. 3 points in the Champions League back. Liverpool players who had a stinker against Nottingham Forest back. So many good performances were there across the back line, across the players that came in, because we always talk about the things we learned and did anyone play their way in and out. If Kostas Tsimikas just has to cross the ball, he would have played his way in, wouldn't he? However, Kostas Tsimikas is shooting with the right foot. I don't care, I laughed. Don't care what anyone says. It was horrific, wasn't it? And just some bad shooting all round. So I wouldn't say he played his way in. You expect Robbo to come back, put it that way. Gakpo, I'm not going to talk about too much because I think that's the toughest decision of the weekend, isn't it? Is Arne Slot going to play Cody Gakpo or Luis Diaz? That is the big question mark for me. We know about Allison now, but in terms of changes, yeah, you make a case for both on the left wing. Dominic Szoboszlai was good to see him get a goal as well, because Slot had talked about that in the Champions League press conference just before. So that was a little bit of, again, because he works so hard. He's an absolute pressing demon. But he gave the ball away a lot, didn't he? Just made a few, errors. You think, why is he making that decision? But a great winning performance and a great goal. So, hopefully just gives him a boost that way. The two centre-backs, unbelievable goals. And then Trent, brilliant again. Honestly, Gravenberch, man of the match. McAllister, understated, but brilliant again. Mo Salah doing his Darwin Nunez impression. Aral in the woodwork. There's so much to like. There really is. But we've talked about Milan enough. Bournemouth, ladies and gents. The threats they bring. Slot talked about them quite a bit and said they started off well and that caught the eye. And he mentioned, which we all love, the fact that they were 2-0 down against Everton with 5 minutes to go on 1-3-2. That was a little boost early in the season for us. We appreciate Bournemouth for that. You also talked about the nice playing style of Iraola, and there's two former Feyenoord players, isn't there? As you mentioned, that he knows in Sinistera and Senesi, the centre-back and the winger. So he'll know a bit about these. And you look at Bournemouth so far in the league, the kind of where you expect them to be, maybe that in their 4 games, they won 1, drawn 2, lost 1. And that recent loss was Chelsea at home, wasn't it? The 1-0 defeat where Nkunku scores late. So that you can't rule them out. And obviously the Forest bit will be a bit of the ghost, the monkey on the back a little bit. It's possible for this one. I mean, if they're players as well, they've got some good threats. Evan Nielsen, he's working his way, I think it's fair to say, into the Premier League. Not scored yet, but you can see hungry, a hard worker. I do like Semenyo as well. I mean, you look at him this season, Semenyo's got a couple of goals and an assist so far. in not the most fashionable team, but a good team. He also scored last season against us, didn't he, as well? So he is one to watch, I think, Semenyo of all those threats. Also, they do play a nice style. So, yeah, this will be no pushover, especially with the ghost from the previous weekend. Which brings us to, ladies and gents, doesn't it? Your score and your scorers. I just get and maybe this is too confident, I don't know, but let me set this out fully for you. I think there may be the odd moan or groan, which people are going to have to get over fast. We might have to be a bit patient in this one. I just feel that, like, it's 0-0 at half time. Let's not be hearing moans and groans. As Arne mentioned to us, let's be getting behind if we can. The boys, no reason we can't either. I've just got a feeling of patience in this one, but 2-0. I'd like to get back to clean sheets at the same time as well, because it was a great strike by Adoy. Felt really soft, the Pulisic one, didn't it? As Tsimikas goes jumping on an adventure, and I get why Ibu didn't come across. You see McAllister, but it was just a bit of a poor goal to give away, and they recovered from it really well. But it'd be good to just see us get back to clean sheets. And I mean, you can't be too hard on it recently, because the XG we're conceding is so low. In all the games now, that's hopefully becoming habitual, and we can keep that going. So for me, I'm going to go for a 2-0. And after rattling the woodwork twice, I'm going to go for Mo Salah to score the first goal. So 2-0, Mo Salah, and we'll see. We'd take that all day long, wouldn't we? We'd love a clean sheet. We'd love a victory and get back to winning ways, and then to play. The Carabao. Before it's been like the olden days, like it's times of yore, but in the Carabao, the way it's going, you'd have thought, just play anyone, play the Carol from the canteen in the pivot, etc. But it's going to be a strong team, isn't it, for the Carabao? And I actually think the lineup, I've not told you that, is Kelleher if it's not Allison. You expect it's going to be Kelleher. There's nobody to take a risk. Trent and Robbo, Virgil and Canate. I genuinely think he's going to go 3 in a week for Canate. Crazy to say that. Someone had said to you, just be honest, at the start of this season, Ibu Canate is going to play 3 games in a week. You'd have probably replied with, and his leg will fall off. But it doesn't look like it is. And he's not played every single minute. I know he's played every single game, remember? It was 45, wasn't it? Against Ipswich on the opening day. And he came off a little bit earlier, didn't he, against Forest? He's not played every single minute. But I just do get the feeling that it's a bit of a surprise, maybe on notes. Maybe it's a great thing that Canate could manage 3 in a week. So I do suspect he'll start. The midfield 3, I think, will be exactly the same. I'm really starting to come to that conclusion that it's bodies, not options. And I think people will then say, but others will play in the Carabao. Yeah, because they're the cover. I do think it's so crystal clear that the 3 of Gravenberch, who's had a brilliant start, McAllister's had a very good start as well. So Bosley, he's had a decent start overall. Let's be clear. I know everyone's going to level Forest against all of them, but very good starts to the season. I think the others are now more options, possibly for maybe a Curtis Jones, but I still think more bodies. I don't, just Elliott and Endo. Sorry, not Elliott. Tyler Morton and Endo are there for me to make up the numbers a little bit for Arne Slot and rest and rotate rather than being real contenders. Harvey Elliott's a sad one. We'll never know. Slot said he was going to get minutes. But again, is that Carabao or was that the challenge in this one? So the same midfield. Salah's going to start. I do think it's going to be bad news for Darwin Nunez. I do believe that, ladies and gents. I do think it's going to be Diogo Jota again. Just even the way he talked about him, that he's played well the last few games. I don't think we've seen that from Jota, haven't we? The chance we missed, the pass completion, just the inability to control the ball at times as well. I mean, if you put misses, lack of control, and poor passing together, that's a pretty bad performance, isn't it, for the last few? But I think it seems quite clear that he is the number 9. So I suspect Darwin will start against West Ham in the Carabao. I think it's going to be Jota again, and I think that will tell its own story. Gakpo and Diaz. Now, when I thought about this, I did actually think at one point, does he go Diaz left and Gakpo in the middle? Does he get both of them into team because of the form? And it's still possible. Would not surprise me, but I don't think so. I do think the way you talked about it in this press conference, that it's between them, I would accept a call either way. I don't say either with confidence. I do think it will be Diaz. That's what my gut's telling me, but I'm not saying that with confidence. It will be zero surprise if Cody Gakpo starts in this lineup. But I do feel, for me, it's just if you sometimes play Gakpo, Jota, Salah, it isn't slow again, just to be clear, but it does feel a bit one pace. It's Nunez and Diaz. And Gakpo's not slow, just to be clear, but it's that one that cuts inside and someone's going to be shouting they can go down the wing. Listen, Diaz, Gakpo, toss of a coin for me this weekend. I can make a case either way. You will make yours, ladies and gents. But that's how I see it. That's the lineup. 2-0. Bournemouth at home. Back to winning ways in the league before the Carabao Cup. That is what we're hoping for. Friday the 20th of September. That was the post-conference presser at Anfield Index.